want to thank everybody for taking the time watching my show here. And the information I'm just going to transpose and say how it comes. I'm going to tell it like how it is. Well, first, I'm wondering about what Biden's new BuildABack better, however he says it, plan really is when it comes to economics. I mean, the only thing I can ever think about when it comes to Joe Biden is building better for Joe, his family, and all the former Obama cronies with better bank accounts. It is no secret about Joe Biden's MO all his life, all his political career, and it was all due to the expense of the American people. When his Build America Back again, he's really talking again about Joe himself, his wife, his son, Hunter, and of course his brother James, and of course all of, like I said, the Obama cronies. But when I think of Joe Biden, I think of the famous Mark Twain statement when he spoke about corruption within government, when he said, "We have the best government that money can buy." And it truly is when it comes to what we witnessed during the 8 years of the Obama administration, and most of it is coming more to light as we speak. I mean, there's plenty of people in total denial of it, especially those who don't want to believe the truth, but the facts are out there. It's truth. There is without a doubt that the Obama administration and all the peeps involved were highly corrupt. Not just the Clintons and the Clinton Foundation. It was definitely within the State Department levels, with billions of dollars somehow disappearing. Fast and Furious, the exchange sold of guns to the cartels, and of course the Iranian $1.5 billion plus cash dropped onto Iranian platforms, cash that we don't know where it came from and who got what, and how do we know there was no finder fee, as we call it, wink wink, among certain people, including the Obamas and his administration officials and the Bidens and you name it, everybody who was involved, ground up. I mean, you can go on and on about the corruption. I mean, transporting arms from Libya through Jordan, then which were sent then forwarded to ISIS, both financially and arms as well. All that corruption. I mean, I can go on and on. We can about their history of the corruption that was so blatant within the Obama administration. But key to that would be Joe Biden, since he's the guy who's now running, right? He's now the Democrat nominee. So, is he what is called the best government that money can buy, as Mark Twain has suggested? Now, I don't know if Truman actually said this, but it totally describes the epitome of Biden when I think about his political career. He supposedly stated, and again I say supposedly because there's no confirmation of it, but it is a funny quote. He said that no man can get rich in politics unless he's a crook. I want you to think about that. No man can get rich in politics unless he's a crook. Let's see how that correlates with Biden's political career. You see, Biden first became the U.S. Senator in 1973. And from 73 through 77, he conveniently sat on the Senate Banking Committee, which his brother James Biden happened to own a nightclub, who suddenly received, who knows, unusual generous bank loans for who knows what reason. I mean, how many people can get a bank loan off a strip joint, right? Or a nightclub. Not saying he had a strip joint, but just think about it. What nightclub, just on name, can get here's a loan without any collateral or anything? Well, James Biden did. So just think about that. Is that a coincidence? I don't know. I think not. Because in 1990s, Bidens suddenly owned and operated, and I'm talking Bidens included, that's both Hunter and his son. They ended up owning a corporation called the Lion Hall Group, and it represented the tobacco corporation as lobbyists. So when Biden voted for tobacco and took care of his brother, James. This continued on. I'm just saying, excuse me, I apologize, but Lions Hall was owned by Joe's brother, not Joe's son. So I just want to clarify, it was owned by James Hunter. But nonetheless, when Biden voted for tobacco, is pretty much of a correlation. The tobacco industry took care of his brother via payments to the lobbyists. And that's how we'll do. Quid pro quo. It's no convenient, by the way, that name stick on him, because he'd been doing that for 40 some odd plus years. So 2001 through 2008, Hunter was also a paid lobbyist for Delaware Bank and MBNA. And in 2005, Joe Biden personally crafted and proposed and eventually pushed through a bill that actually benefited MBNA banking, making it extremely hard for the average American to declare bankruptcy. I mean, this is actually something I don't always agree with Elizabeth Warren, but she brought that up during one of the debates, and I was shocked that when she did it, because Biden had no answers, or he probably didn't, knowing him, he probably didn't even know what the hell the answer was, right? So Joe took care of MNBA, and of course MBNA took care of Hunter. Quid pro quo. So you're starting to see there's sort of like a pattern that developed from the 1970s to the early 2000 period. Through Biden, his little, I'd say, corrupt enterprises with his family and his cronies and people associated him, and it continued on in the 2000 period. In 2006, James Biden, Hunter Biden, actually owned and operated an infamous corrupt corp. It was called Paradigm Global Advisors. You can Google them up, which simply was Biden's version of Clinton's infamous pay-to-play scam enterprise. You see, I mean, it was almost a Ponzi scheme. Biden's family paradigm was a Ponzi scheme, which was actually deeply involved with a guy named Alan Stanford at the Pancha Negra Fund. And of course, they immediately dissolved it when people started looking into him, but he was never prosecuted. Wink, wink. Perhaps it's because where he stood on the Senate Banking Committee. I mean, it's a powerful committee. And as senator sitting in Delaware, where a lot of corporations, specifically banking or corporations, were incorporated at. So let me think. So let's see, that was in 2009. And then, something else happened in 2009. Yeah, that's right. He was a vice president. Because Joe Biden led the reset button, with Putin and Russia. So yes, Biden was very instrumental with the Uranium One Deal. That where we gave 20% of our uranium to Putin and Russia. That little deal, which included various kickbacks thrown all over the place. I mean, one of them is, and this is sort of pretty much a fact, that Biden's consulting associate, Hillstone, was actually getting kickbacks. And they were supposed to be a consulting firm associated with Biden. And this is how they did it around. They never gave it the money straight to Biden. It was all these entities and corporations around him or his family members. So Biden could say, hey, I didn't receive any money. I didn't get anything. Of course he didn't. Joe, his brother James did. Hunter did. his consulting firms would do, and who knows what accounts where those went to, and some fictitious accounts overseas, or who knows where. It's not hard to hide shell accounts, and that's probably more or less what they did. But it's definitely pretty much a fact that Putin was throwing out cash, and all his peeps throwing out cash to a lot of Obama peeps, including the Clintons and the Bidens and etc. And that began like in 2011. When the distribution started occurring, and Biden was not exclusive. He was part of that whole gambit of corruption with kickbacks and everything else. That's pretty much substantiated because you can see what happened with those monies within the Clinton foundations, and there's books written by many people, including the guy who wrote this book, or one of the writers of this, and I'm holding out. It's called Fallout. It was this book was written by John Solomon, but it has a foreword by Peter Schweitzer, and Peter Schweitzer wrote a book called The Clinton Cash. And I hope you guys can all see it. It is a great book. Has tons of detailed information, and it does highlight the what had corresponded with the Obama administration's corruption, and it does talk about things with Biden, but other things including the Clintons and all the people that ran around. But I don't want to get off a target here, but I was just pointing out this book also has stuff talking about the Biden corruption and his involvement in the Ukrainian deal, and he definitely got some cash kickback one way or another, indirectly or directly. I'm pretty sure if the powers that be, the DOJ, got off their butt, they can actually find that out. I mean, Giuliani, in his little trip to Ukraine, found out about a lot of stuff that was happening. George Soros is definitely involved and probably using his companies for laundering the funds that went out from Biden, which I'm going to get into that with the Ukrainian deals, because he was definitely involved with that. So, but in 2011, Joe Biden's brother's company, he had another one, it was called Hillstone International, which, by the way, it received a $1.5 billion contract by the U.S. government to build housing in Iraq. What's interesting is about that was there was no competing bids, meaning the only one they allocated was basically, here you go, James, here's your little deal. And guess who's running that show? Joe Biden, right? I mean, since everywhere Joe Biden was around, somehow his family was making money left and right, including, like I just said, a $1.5 billion contract. I wonder how many homes were actually built with $1.5 billion, and if that was really ever audited and where those monies really went to. So, I have a question about that. I doubt there was $1.5 billion worth of homes built in Iraq. So then we go to another thing that happened. In 2013, Biden has a little travel to China, right? And with him is his little son, Hunter. And after only 1 week, the communist Chinese government gave $1.5 billion, or it was over $1 billion. I'm assuming it's about approximately 1.5, but give and take, to Hunter's companies and through various trustee holding companies, all factual, after his visit. Trump and his people couldn't get a deal like that from China. They're lucky if they can get, hundreds of millions of some kind of deals going, but $1.5 billion? Come on, something's not. Nike can't even get kind of deal like that straight off of 1 week. That's crazy. So how did his son suddenly get all this money? That's a big question. And what was the deal behind China giving this money? Was it a little wink for future purposes? Is that why Biden is always defending China? Is that why China is always on Biden's mind, about manufacturing? And, he is a globalist, by the way, obviously. He doesn't care about American manufacturing or whatever. He says it, but it's all crap. We all know that, because he's owned basically from the Chinese government. They don't give a $1.5 billion just because, you know, Hunter has a cute little smile, or Biden is such a nice, kind guy. You know, they have a reason for it. The Chinese don't give that kind of money out. Now, Joe is also, in 2014, you probably heard about this during the impeachment hearings, and if not, well, you better educate yourself on it. Joe was a key U.S. overseas administrator over the Ukraine and its affairs within its region, which conveniently billions of dollars are being sent to Ukraine, of course, not to defend them or help arm them. I mean, this is after Putin seized control of Ukraine's Crimea and started encroaching with Russia-supported militias into eastern Ukraine. But there were no arms or supplies. There was a lot of cash flying over there. Billions were flying over there. And suddenly, Biden's son was placed on the board of directors for that infamous corrupt corporation, by the way, called Burisma. It's a gas corporation where Hunter admitted he had no idea anything about gas. He doesn't speak a word of the Ukrainian language or have any experience or anything within that region. So why did they hire him? He admitted it. He received over monthly salaries of hundreds of thousands of dollars approximately. I mean, there's thousands of dollars. But what was incredible was while Ukraine's prosecutors began their investigation of Burisma and possibly Hunter business's operations within it, or why he's involved, or others. I believe Pelosi's son was also involved. I believe Romney himself was involved. I mean, those are just a few. Maybe that's why Romney doesn't like Trump. But Biden really, you know, was totally involved with this stuff, and it's surprisingly that people don't take that how serious, how that compromise our American interests and the security, not just in the world, which it did, but also threatened the security of the United States. You know, by first, like I said, the Uranium One, and now, you know, exaggerating or making the Ukrainian corruption, which was like already a corrupt problem, already worse. So, I mean, when they started investigating, the Ukrainian government tried to come clean and investigate Burisma. Biden even boasted about threatening to cut off all his aid to the Ukraine. I mean, he did this famously during his CFR conference where he spoke out before the press. I mean, he basically admitted his quid pro quo of his illegal activities. That was definitely illegal what he did, threatening a foreign nation to cut off their funds, to stop a inspection. I mean, it is criminal in nature. Is definitely criminal in its own element, because it's U.S. funds. It's a thing that they tried to throw at Trump, which was not the opposite. It was actually Trump was giving money and giving things, but they're assuming that he did. But the real circumstance was Joe Biden created a quid pro quo, and he threatened the Ukrainian government that if they don't cease and desist the investigation, including firing the Ukrainian prosecutor, well, he was going to cut the funds, as he famously said. And of course, they fired the Ukrainian prosecutor. So at present, by the way, Joe Biden is under criminal investigation by the Ukrainian government for his activities and his quid pro quo and his meddling, and of course his activities in obstructing the criminal investigation of Burisma and others. That's actually a fact. You can Google it, check it out. It's ongoing. So can you imagine having a president that's now under a criminal investigation by Ukrainian government? You know what he's going to do? He's going to cut off and threaten, if he were, God forbid, president, threaten the Ukrainians. I mean, he would make the Saudis look clean. I mean, he'd look like Putin. You know, basically it's sort of ironic that much of what Biden has accused Trump, he's actually did. And much of what Biden accused Putin of doing, I mean, he totally does that. I mean, he's totally involved with all these economic apparatuses. So, when Biden talks about he's going to build back America, I mean, the only thing Biden is really going to ever build back is his bank accounts, his family's bank accounts, and of course his minions' bank accounts. And of course there's the wink, wink, China, I'll take care of you. Don't forget it, China. I'm sure we got it under control. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Chinese are throwing money in support indirectly into the campaigns. And I'm sure, of course, we won't find that out until months, if not years from this, the way things are run and how slow things run through the justice system in the DOJ. But there's definitely there. It's all definitely there. And it's sad. But he's definitely owned by China. And knowing that Putin had made payoffs and kickbacks, it was sort of funny when Pelosi accused Trump of being, hey, he's doing stuff, or Rachel Maddow and all those other idiots say that, hey, Trump is Putin's little puppet, and maybe they have something over their head. Well, it's really not ever been Trump. It's always been Biden, the Clintons, the Obamas. But right now I'm talking about Biden. And Biden's definitely owned by China. And I can only see how Putin could, expose Biden himself and control him. So think about that. I mean, here's another little fact. On paper, at the end of 2016, when the Obama administration officially ended its, or you can say January of 2017, when the Obama administration ended its term, Joe Biden was worth, on paper, approximately $400,000. But within 6 months, suddenly, out of thin air, he's worth over $11 million. Now they're going to say, oh, well, he got this book deal and he got that deal. Excuse me. You get a deal, they don't give you $11 million up front, okay? They will give you, here's a few $100,000 and or $1 million maybe, and they'll go, okay, and speculative, they'll give you some, residuals that when your book gets on sales and it's promoted, it's going to make this kind of money. So they don't really, they're lying to you when they tell you $3 million or $2 million. That's not how it works, okay? I know, I wrote books on whatever, but that's not how it works. Publishers don't hand out millions of dollars. They're not stupid. They give a little down payment and then a projected amount that they assume that will be, the help promoting and things like that. So how did he get from $400,000 to $11 million on paper? And who knows what's outside paper? It's sort of the same thing with the Obamas. Happened with the Clintons. But come on, Joe. Really now? So, like I said, Biden's only interest is in this order: himself, his family, his minions, and of course, China's Communist Party. Right, Joe? I mean, we know it. You know it. I think most Americans, I'd say about most Americans are starting to find out about it. I think even as much I don't agree with them, the leftists know Biden's corrupt. Elizabeth Warren even pointed out how corrupt he is. I mean, Tulsi Gabbard pointed out his corruption. I mean, there's vast amounts of corruption. Joe Biden is, besides, it would be devastating if he was president. Not only on his economic policies, which I went through in my previous videos, but knowing that his interest is never and will never be an American interest, that he's beholden by China and possibly Putin, or more likely Putin. You see, Biden doesn't give a crap about you. He never has. He doesn't care about America. He doesn't care about the American people. He never has. He doesn't care about the American worker. He doesn't care about you. So come on, man. Just wake up. Take that red pill. Think for yourself. As George Orwell once said, a people that elect corrupt politicians, imposters, thieves, and traitors are not victims, but instead accomplices. So think about that. We don't need to elect another corrupt president. We have a great president presently, President Trump, who's actually ripping apart the corruption within the government, and that's why these globalists like Biden, the Clintons, the Soroses, the Obamas, they don't like him. That's the fact. And Biden doesn't give a crap about you. He never has. He cares about himself. Like I said, he'll do his little wink wink to China. Gotcha, baby. I care, gotcha. With his little wink. You know, that's who he cares about. So, I want to thank you for listening, and God bless you all. Thank you.